Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. This is my little sidekick, the nerd dog himself, Todd. We have no idea what breed he is. We think he is a Schipperke, which is a Belgian breed. If you think you know what he is, let me know in the comments. He's not a puppy, he just looks like one. He's a little camera shy, you can tell. He's a little nervous. I had to bribe him with a lot of kibble to get on top of here with me, but anyway, welcome to my channel. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to subscribe to it and ring that little bell so you get notifications for all things nerd, anime, film. I talk about a whole variety of topics. And Todd here, he could really care less, as you can tell. But anyway, he's not a very cuddly dog, but he definitely likes to bark at, the mailman who is obviously a spy, according to Todd, anyway. Anyway, welcome to Studio Jake. Sit back and relax because we're going to have a fun time talking about Spider-Man, which I just talked about 2 weeks ago, actually more than 2 weeks ago, but I had fun talking about him last time, so we're going to talk about him again because there's some new developments with the MCU. So sit back, relax, and welcome to Studio Jake. Okay, and welcome back. Todd played his union card, so he's not going to be able to appear in the rest of the episode. I'm really ashamed. Oh, but he's hovering right here, so he's clearly interested in the fame and popularity he gets from Studio Jake, but also he's kind of like, union says, only, intros and outros. So anyway, today I'm very excited to talk about Spider-Man because we have some new developments that cracked just Friday about Sony and Marvel and Disney. So for those of you who have been living under a rock since August, basically what happened was Sony, of course, has been loaning Spider-Man because they have the film rights to Spider-Man to Disney, and so he can appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, part of this deal is that Disney would only get the profits from the Spider-Man's guest appearances. So Captain America: Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, Disney got those profits, and then Sony got the profits from Homecoming and Far From Home, the Spider-Man films in the MCU. So that's the deal they had. And contingent on this deal was that Spider-Man could stay in the MCU if Far From Home reached $1 billion. And this is really fantastic because it did reach $1 billion. Sony, I'm sure, was very happy. I know Disney was happy because they were thinking, oh, Spider-Man's going to stay. Well, Disney thought, hey, Spider-Man hit the $1 billion mark. Why don't we come to the table and renegotiate? Now, there's a few people out there, a few curmudgeons who have Disney derangement syndrome, because Disney's buying up everything and all this, and people are kind of mad at Disney, and I don't really know why. It's called business and branding, and I'm not pro Disney doing this, but I also there people are going so far to calling it monopoly, and if that happens, then maybe what happens when a monopoly goes into effect, antitrust laws and all that, maybe that should happen, but right now I'm not totally convinced. I mean, Paramount and CBS just merged, Viacom just bought a whole slew of other companies. So yeah, I'm not really seeing, I know Disney is the biggest right now, but I'm not really seeing them as doing anything wrong. Well, Disney comes to Sony after Far From Home reaches the $1 billion mark and says, hey, we want to renegotiate. Since we're loaning you our studios, our actors, our crew, they're loaning them Kevin Feige, we would like a bigger cut of the profit. Now, there's a little bit miscommunication because no one knows about that part about the $1 billion mark that Sony had set for Disney. No one really, that's kind of being kept a little bit of a secret, which I think is dumb. People aren't really talking about that. But, well, Sony just now Sony is riding high off 2 films. So Venom, which Christian Toto, who is the purveyor of Hollywood and Toto, he's a really good colleague of mine. I respect him. He said Venom was one of the worst films of the year. I respectfully disagree. I liked Venom. I thought it was more like a Fast and Furious movie. It's one that you just watch to turn your brain off. It's pure escapism. But it's a fun, good, interesting, entertaining film. Now, like I said, he thinks it was one of the worst films. Well, Venom beats A Star Is Born, which was clearly an Oscar bait film, right? That's not to talk about the talent of Bradley Cooper or Lady Gaga, but let's just face it, it was an Oscar bait film. That's what it was. And you know, Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, if you watch the Oscars right after that film, they clearly had some weird things happening. But anyway, so they're riding high off Venom, and they're riding off high of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is probably one of the best animated films I've ever seen. I mean, it's well made, it's very innovative, the directing is good, the story is good. One of my big complaints was I never liked the Miles Morales character. That movie made me like Miles Morales. That's how good of a movie it is. If you go back on my blog or even on this channel, all I do is complain about Miles Morales, how he was a bad decision on Marvel's part. It was just made to appeal to that woke PC crowd. But that film actually, and this shows, good writing produces good results. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, good writing. It convinced me that Miles has potential as a character going forward. So I'm really excited about that. Now, so this is happening, right? And Sony decides, hey, we're getting a little big for our britches, so we're going to tell Disney no. Now, part of the negotiations, and this is another thing that's kind of being ignored by the people with Disney derangement syndrome, is Disney actually lowered it from 50 to 40%, and Sony just walked away. They just said, forget it, we're cutting ties with you. Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man 3 is going to be a soft reboot. So they walked away, and fans were outraged. And of course, everyone remembers the trending hashtag Save Spidey and hashtag Save Spidey from Sony. I was a part of it. I actually tweeted about it so much. Twitter added me to the Twitter moments because I also retweeted Sony's tweet about it, where they released a statement because everyone was so angry, and they just basically blamed Disney for it. And I said, yeah, no one is buying this. And so when I first commented on it, I said Sony was making a mistake because they're putting all their stock off Venom and off of an animated film, which again they did good, but just remember, Sony has had to cancel several films, several Spider-Man films, before they finally decided to loan Spider-Man to Disney Studios. So what happens? The Amazing Spider-Man 3 canceled. The Sinister Six spinoff, which I wasn't excited about, canceled. Silver and Black, which was going to be Silver Sable and Black Cat. Those characters aren't interesting enough to hold their own movie, much less together. Canceled. So I thought Sony was getting a little ahead of themselves, and I said this repeatedly. And I also, and again, you can go back and read, I'm not like a diehard Disney person. I've criticized Disney, particularly in how they're running Marvel Comics. I've criticized them about this. You can go back and look at that stuff. But in this case, Disney was in the right. Spider-Man Far From Home crossed the $1 billion mark. Any other movie company in the entire world, like say the MCU had been made by Paramount, which originally, don't forget, Paramount was actually the one that originally put the MCU together before Disney bought Marvel Studios. So say Paramount was still making these films. Paramount would have gone to Sony and say, hey, I want to renegotiate. We hit your $1 billion mark and went over. We're getting rave reviews. Fans are loving this film. They love Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. Of course you would want to go to renegotiate. So that is the backstory to Sony's really greedy decision to separate from Disney. So all this happens, and Sony seems pretty firm, and there is even rumors, because I had said what's going to happen is they're going to do Spider-Man 3. It's going to be a soft reboot without the MCU, and it's probably going to be good, and it's probably going to make a lot of money, but then Spider-Man 4 is going to be crappy because Tom Holland's going to leave and John Watts is going to leave. And I was warning people of all of this, and no one seemed to believe me. But then what comes out? Sony's renegotiating with John Watts and Tom Holland about their contracts. And so I think, and that was all that was leading up to what happened just this week. Okay, so we get to what happened this week. So, breaking news Friday, the internet explodes because Sony has decided to renegotiate their deal with Disney. So, the provision of the deal is Disney now gets 25% of one film, which people are joking about the titles, about what Spider-Man 3 is going to be called. People it was really funny, but everyone was really excited that Spider-Man is going to remain home. He's going to stay with the MCU, which I think is correct. They're saying that basically this third Spider-Man film is meant to round out the Spider-Man story in the MCU, and then he's supposed to appear as a guest star in another film, possibly the New Avengers. But no one really knows that. That's just rumors. So, and then Disney is going to get 25% of this third Spider-Man film with Tom Holland. So Tom Holland is coming back to act. John Watts is coming back to direct, and everyone is super excited about this, and I'm excited about this. Now, I'm hoping what's going to happen is Sony is going to see this. They're going to see the fan excitement, the fan anticipation, and they are going to want to keep Spider-Man home. And I keep saying that, and I'm saying that very, very emphatically. Spider-Man needs to be with the MCU. He needs to be a part of that wide universe. The problem with a lot of these solo superhero films is unless you're going to do small sort of localized stories like the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, it's not going to make a lot of sense. So that was the problem that The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 had. That's the problem Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire had, was they were trying to do this big, expansive story, and it just didn't match up. And Sony was just going to make that same mistake again. And again, I love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but it was going to be the same situation. And I think that going forward, Sony is probably eventually going to give up the rights to Spider-Man to Disney. I wouldn't be surprised, because anytime they try to do something to separate, the fans go hog wild. And already they're hinting that there's going to be some crossover with Venom. Kevin Feige made a statement to this effect. And now, as for people's reaction, John Watts is excited that Spider-Man is staying in the MCU. Of course, he was probably going to get fired by Sony because he wanted to finish off the story he started in the first two films, and you would have had a Brett Ratner situation with X3 or X-Men: The Last Stand. That would have been pretty awful. No one wants a repeat of that. So he's pretty excited. Tom Holland is pretty excited. He did an Instagram post of a scene from The Wolf of Wall Street where it's like, we're effing staying. So I think he's excited about this. Now, like I said, there's some curmudgeons who have Disney derangement syndrome. They're not excited about it, but I am. Now, it seems like Spidey is going to be part of Phase 4, and this is one of my problems. Phase 4 seems like a placeholder. There's not really a whole lot of good films. I mean, you've got The Eternals. No one wants to see that movie. Now, you do have Black Widow and the Doctor Strange sequel. I think those are going to be good films, and I'm actually a little excited for Shang-Chi. I think that's going to be a good film. So I'm excited that that's happening. So wherever Spider-Man lands, whether he's going to be in Phase 4 or he's going to be in Phase 5, which from the rumors about Phase 5, that one actually sounds interesting. That one's going to have Guardians 3. It's going to have, there's rumor that that's where the New Avengers is going to land. That's where the Black Panther sequel is going to land. Supposedly a Captain Marvel sequel. Supposedly a third Ant-Man film. But there's also a rumor that Ant-Man will probably most likely end up in a mini-series on Disney Plus instead of a film, which I actually would be okay with that. Ant-Man seems to have served his purpose. I don't know what else he could do moving forward. But back to Spider-Man. I feel that this is the right move by Sony. I don't know who the villain is going to be. They've introduced Vulture and Shocker. They introduced the guy who is the Prowler. They've introduced Mysterio. Although they seem to make it pretty clear that Mysterio may not be coming back. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I actually hope it's a Venom crossover. I think that's what they should do, honestly. They should introduce the Tom Hardy Venom, but they should do it in a retconned way. So they could still make it where he's Eddie Brock from San Francisco. He travels to New York for a story, probably covering Spider-Man. Maybe he gets hired by the Daily Bugle. So he travels to New York, and somehow he and the symbiote gets separated, and it attaches to Spider-Man. Now, this could be a good twist for Eddie Brock, because one of the things that drives Eddie Brock that they had to take out of the Venom movie was he actually has a hatred for Peter Parker. Him and the symbiote come together. They have a mutual hatred for Peter Parker. Although I think Eddie Brock was more about hating Spider-Man. He blames Spider-Man for everything that went wrong in his life. So this could be a good twist where the Venom symbiote attaches to Spidey and likes the power that Spidey has, and he starts to grow, and Peter Parker starts to grow more aggressive. Because, Tom Holland, this could also be a chance for Tom Holland to be highlighted. So instead of just going emo like Tobey Maguire did, we could actually see like Spider-Man start to turn evil a little bit. He starts to become aggressive. Maybe he almost kills a villain. And so Eddie Brock is instead trying to rescue basically him and the symbiote. Rescue Peter and the symbiote and bring it together. I think that would be a good twist on the character. I know that that is a little bit off base than what people are used to seeing for Spider-Man and his relationship with Venom, but I think that that would be the appropriate way to go. Now, hopefully, the fans will turn out again for the third Spider-Man film, and this will convince Sony to stick with the MCU. I think that's appropriate. I think that's the way it needs to be. Now, note on this: Avengers Endgame felt like an ending to me. And it was actually a little hard going to see Spider-Man Far From Home, although they did treat it kind of like an epilogue to the Infinity Saga, as the first first three phases of the MCU is called. They did treat it that way. So right now, before I was excited about everything the MCU is doing, and now I'm really not. Now, maybe when more of the Phase 5 announcements come out, I'll get more excited, but like I'm not excited for the Eternals. I'm not excited for Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm not really excited for any of those films right off the bat. I am excited for Black Widow, and I'm somewhat excited for Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, especially if the rumor about Wanda Maximoff being the villain. I think that'll be a good twist on her character. It'll be good to drive it forward. So we'll just have to wait and see. I was hoping it would be Nightmare and then we'd get Mark Hamill to voice Nightmare. That would be fantastic. But I'm honestly not excited about that. But I am excited to see what is happening with Spider-Man. I am excited with Black Widow. And so I think like now, because before, this was kind of how superhero movies were for. You were excited about a movie. So you were excited about Batman Begins. You were excited about Spider-Man 2. For a brief time, people were excited about Superman Returns and then weren't when it actually came out. So I think, especially after Phase 4, people are going to kind of get franchise fatigue, and that's what it's going to go back to. So you'll see certain movies like Black Widow, for example, or Spider-Man Beyond Home, you're going to see those movies do really well, and then other movies like The Eternals, they're going to do poorly. Birds of Prey, it's going to do poorly because obviously the trailer is the teaser and the movie poster are pretty much garbage. So no one wants to see that movie. But we're just going to have to wait and see. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm really excited about Spider-Man's return. I'm really excited for this future film, and I hope that this will teach Sony a lesson. Try not to mess with your fans. Don't alienate your fan base. In this case, Sony did the right thing. Hopefully, Disney and Warner Brothers will get the message about that, and they'll copy it for further installments of these franchises. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you're as excited as I am. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at RealJacobAiry. Instagram is at RealJacobAiry. Facebook is author Jacob Airy. And of course, find my blog where I expand more on these topics. I talk anime, television, movies, books, pretty much anything pop culture, a little bit of faith and music in there as well. Head over there. That's www.jacoberey.blog. And also pick up your copy of my fantasy novel, The Seven Royals, All Good Things, in the Land of Cray, 7 young royals, Jasher, Philip, Talia, Connor, Rapunzel, James, and Belle were living peaceful lives until Emperor Midas and the evil Grand Mage Fabius Thorn attacked their lands with their dark army. The Dragon Prince Jasher is put into a frozen sleep while the others are scattered for their protection. 10 years later, Jasher awakens with a mystical blue sword and unites the other 6. Along the way, the royals encounter friends, foe, and unexpected allies as they journey back to retake their homelands. So it's got a ton of your favorite fairy tale characters, taking them out of the realm of kids' stories and back where they belong in their fantasy era. You can pick this up on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or BookLocker.com. So head over to those places and you can get paperback or digital versions. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.